Welcome to the Positive Thread Podcast. I'm Heather McConaughey, nutritionist and mindset coach, podcast host, and former registered nurse. I have a passion for empowering millennial women because, well, I'm the oldest of the millennials. Think of me like your big millennial sister. Every week, I'll bring you an interview, topic, or Q&A session that will inspire you to care for your body, mind, and soul. I believe that when women prioritize self-care, everyone wins. If that sounds good to you, you're in the right place. Are you ready? Let's start the show. So I'm so excited to share today's guest with you, and I have to tell you the story of how we met first. So I use an app called Focus Mate, which is my fave app for getting things done while working from home, and it's so cool. They partner you with somebody from anywhere in the world, and you get paired up for an hour to work together with somebody. And I got paired up with today's guest, and we discovered we were both in the food field. And so I asked her some questions and started following her on Instagram, and I just thought she was so cool what she was up to. I had to share her with you today. So please welcome cookbook author, fermenter, sourdoughter, and zero waster, the Zero Waste. Please welcome cookbook author, fermenter, sourdoughter, and zero waster, the Zero Waste chef, Anne-Marie Bonneau. Welcome to the show, Anne-Marie.
Oh, thanks, Heather. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I am so excited to have you here. Okay, so you have like so many kind of cool titles and you're up to so many things. I would love to know just like, how did you get into this? Like, what was your life like that led you to this path?
So I've been interested or concerned about the environment for a long time, probably since I was a teenager. But the epiphany came about 10 years ago when I started reading about plastic pollution in the oceans. I had recycled and I thought, plastic's bad, but I'm recycling, so I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and it's all getting turned into new things. And then I found out, okay, that's not really true. Only a small portion is recycled. And, I read about all of the pollution in the oceans. I had no idea there was plastic swirling around in these giant gyres, and seeing the pictures of the albatrosses with plastic in their stomachs and animals being entangled in it, and it's so heartbreaking. So I told my older daughter at the time, she was 16, I said, we have to get off of plastic, and had no idea how to do that. Mary Catherine actually did a lot of the research, and I remember our first trip to the grocery store. We went to Safeway, where we had done quite a bit of our shopping back then. And there was plastic everywhere. And I remember standing in the bathroom tissue aisle, and I said to her, this is going to be impossible. I can't even get a roll of bathroom tissue without plastic. So that's how it started. And then I think being aware of the plastic waste made me aware of all the waste. So then a little while later, I learned about food waste, that in the US, about up to 40% of the food we produce goes uneaten. That's actually improved a little bit since I first read that statistic, but it's still in the, mid 30%. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I love what you share on your Instagram too around being plastic free. And we're going to talk more about this because I find it really challenging too, especially someone who's passionate about food, and I love buying new products and trying things, and there's just so much packaging, so much plastic. So I definitely want to pick your brain more about that. So your philosophy is like more creativity plus tastier food equals zero waste, right? That's kind of like your little equation.
Yeah, I think having parameters makes you more creative, right? If you're just given a blank canvas and 5 million types of paint and told, go paint something, where do you even start? But if you're told, okay, you have to use these 7 colors, paint you can mix, so that's not a good one. But you can only use these many colors, and it has to be, has to be animals, and it has to be this time of year, or something like that. Well, then you can start. So I think having parameters like cut the plastic and cut the food waste as much as you can. The goal is to reduce. If everybody just reduces, that would be great. You don't have to be perfect. It's not possible. So when you're creative like that, you come up with solutions. And I think more delicious food, because you have to figure out, how to make it tasty. And also, I started to ferment like crazy once I did this. And fermented foods just have a ton of flavor in them. So I make preserved lemons and I ferment hot peppers, make hot pepper sauce, stuff like that. They're like little flavor bombs you add to food. So I really do think, I'm much more creative cook now than I was before.
I love that. Yeah. Sometimes I like to do a little challenge where I will, try to eat everything in my fridge, right? Like I've played around with, like I don't want anything to go to waste, right? And it would make me more inventive in the kitchen. I would put things together, and I had people say to me who are like my clients or people who follow me online, they'll be like, wow, how do you come up with your ideas? And I want to be like, well, I just literally threw together like the random things in my fridge.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I tell people all the time, shop the refrigerator first. You'll absolutely slash food waste and you'll save a fortune. The average American family of four spends something like $1,800 a year on food that they don't eat.
Wow.
Yeah. So I can't think of a downside to eating all of the food you buy. I just can't. Let's say you want to go car free for the environment. That, depending on where you live, that could be really hard. You may not have public transit. Where I live, it's easy. I live right downtown. But cutting your food waste, I think, is something everybody can do. You can start immediately. You don't have to buy anything. You just have to use some creativity and a bit of planning. But there's so many benefits to doing that.
So let's talk more about your cookbook. I would love to hear more about this because I love to eat and I also love to cook and invent things in my kitchen. So kind of tell us how you came up with the cookbook. How did you form it? And then like what kind of food and recipes are in your cookbook?
Well, I started my blog back in 2014 thinking, maybe one day I'll turn this into a book. And I started out posting food that you usually buy in a package. So I tried to think of things that you could make yourself at home. And that's when I started to ferment a lot. I mean, I had made yogurt for years. I didn't realize that I was fermenting food. I just knew, if I heat up milk and let it cool down a little bit more so it's still warm and add yogurt from the previous batch, I get new yogurt. But I really started to ferment all kinds of things like vinegar, because I thought, how am I going to get my vinegar? It's all in plastic jugs. So I started making scrap vinegar out of apple peels and cores, which it's not as strong as apple cider vinegar, but it's strong. I mean, it's really good stuff. I have a batch brewing right now in the kitchen. It's made of pineapple peels and cores. And now it has a mother of vinegar growing on it. And I'll be able to use that to make vinegar out of wine and fruit juice. And yeah. So I'm pretty excited.
How do you make a vinegar? Like, what's just the basic way to do that?
So apple scrap vinegar, you save your apple peels and cores. I don't eat tons of apples and I eat the peels, but if I'm making like a fruit crumble, I'll peel the apples, because I've unfortunately trained my children when they were little. I had always peeled the apples. That's what they expect. So if I only have a couple of cores, I'll put them in the freezer. And then once I have enough apples, apple cores and apple peels, you put them in a jar and you add a little bit of sugar, maybe a spoonful of sugar if you have like 8 apples worth of peels and cores. And then just enough water to kind of cover. There are lactic acid bacteria, the peels and cores. They don't die in the freezer. If you put them in there, they just take a little nap. They start to eat the sugars and then they excrete acids and gases. It will turn into alcohol, slightly alcoholic, after, a week, 10 days. Let it sit longer and it will turn vinegary. And then you strain out the cores and peels and you have this vinegar.
I can make my own apple cider vinegar at home extremely easily.
Yeah, well, it's not exactly apple cider vinegar, but it is like a lot of people post that online and you'll see, I made my own ACV, but it's not quite apple cider vinegar, but it's really strong. I mean, you can get a really strong batch. Sometimes it's not as strong as other times. And yeah, you can do the same thing with pineapple peels and cores. So this blob is growing on top now. It's called a mother of vinegar. So I also make kombucha and I just let it brew until it has turned into vinegar. And that stuff's really strong too. So between those two things, I have loads of vinegar.
I love it. When you're making a vinegar, do you put a lid on it and set it on your counter, or do you have to leave it open or put it in the fridge?
No, yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, you leave it open and you cover it with a cloth and put a string or a rubber band around it. You want it on there very tightly so that air can get in, but not fruit flies.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay, I want to try that. So you shared on your Instagram that one of the best ways to reduce food waste is to eat all the food that you have at home first. And I love this tip. I often find I go to the grocery store more than I need. And sometimes I'm buying food before eating up what I have. So do you have any tips for like how to overcome this habit and meal plan better?
I think if you can learn how to cook a few simple, highly adaptable dishes, then that will really help. So things like soup, frittata, quiche, hand pies, pastry. Pastry is like a vehicle for reducing food waste. So in my book, I put 2 galettes. I put a fruit galette and a vegetable savory galette. So the thing I love about galettes, you make the pastry and you roll it out and you don't trim any of it. So you don't waste any pastry. And then you can fill it. If it's a fruit galette, fill it with the fruit that you have on hand. And if you want to make a savory galette, so the one in the book, it's homemade ricotta, but you can put whatever you want. A little bit of homemade ricotta and then some roasted vegetables. I think that is in that one. So, and I have these little hand pies in the book. I called them empamosas. So they're filled with samosa filling. And there's a really nice cilantro chutney to go with that. And you can fill pastry with all kinds of things. So if you learn to make a few things like that, then you can look at what you have on hand and say, okay, well, what can I make with this? I mean, soup is the easiest thing. You can put so many things into soup as long as you have an onion and some fat. I mean, I guess I can make soup without an onion, but if I don't have onions, it's time to go shopping. You really have to have onions.
That's the barometer of time to go grocery shopping. No onions in the house.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how to grocery shop because, I think it can feel overwhelming to try to positively impact the environment with your choices, right? And that's why I love your content too, because I feel like you aren't so rigid or like you have to be 100% plastic free, which I feel like is so hard to do so like what are some tips that we can start to implement to grocery shop in a way where we do reduce our plastic and our waste?
Well, I think so. In Michael Pollan's book, The Omnivorous Dilemma, he says, shop the perimeter of the store. I think that applies to all different lifestyles. If you're trying to eat just more fresh food, if you're trying to reduce your plastic, if you're on a special type of diet, almost all of those are, cut that middle section of the grocery store out as much as you can, because that's where all the highly processed, thus highly packaged foods are. I mean, a lot of them aren't actually food, right? They're food-like.
They're frankenfood, that's what I call them.
Yeah. So if you shop the perimeter, even a grocery store in the US anyway, even a grocery store that is completely, mainstream or discount grocery store is going to have some unpackaged produce. So we started eating a lot more fruit and vegetables when we did this. So my diet really improved. All I wanted to do was get off of the plastic. I had no idea there would be all these benefits. So my diet improved overnight. You can't go plastic free overnight. And I tell people that all the time, don't even try it. It'll just lead to frustration. But my diet really did improve overnight because I realized right away, I'm not buying all of this processed food. I mean, not that I bought a ton of it before, but, I'd go to Trader Joe's. You're in the impulse checkout and they've got all of that, trail mix and cookies and chocolates and it all tastes really good. And I thought, well, that's all in plastic. I'm not buying it anymore. So away,
Yeah, I love what you said about shopping the perimeter fulfills so many goals because I teach my clients that too, right? Just for like eating healthier and losing weight, I'm like, don't go into the middle of the grocery store as much as possible, right? Unless you need like a jar of unsweetened ketchup or like a jar of olives or something, but like don't be in that center part. And I love that you've connected reducing your environmental waste, with also improving your diet and health. So besides kind of shopping the perimeter, what are some other little doable tips that we can all do to reduce our plastic intake overall?
Well, I think most people are used to shopping with their cloth shopping bags by now. They're reusable shopping bags. But put reusable produce bags inside of those bags because those cut down on a ton of plastic. My daughter and I, we made some really simple, basic produce bags back when we started this, so 10 years ago, and I'm still using them. They last a really long time. I have a serger, so it does the overlock stitch, so they're like super sturdy. But yeah, just keep them in your shopping bag because you can easily go through 10 plastic ones a week. And it's great that we're all using the reusable shopping bags, but then we're stuffing them with plastic. So reusable produce bags, you can buy them. You can buy them from Etsy shops. You can get them at food co-ops and health food stores. I mean, they're all over the place. Or if you sew, they're so simple. I don't even put drawstrings on mine. I just make a rectangle like the plastic ones at the store.
Could you also just bring like your own little like small paper bags?
Yeah, you could use paper bags.
Because at least they're
going to wear out after a while. But
okay.
Yeah, if you reuse, and if you do have plastic produce bags at home, reuse those. Use them until they break down.
One thing too that I've tried to do is because I still buy like salsa and onion and olives and things like that. I try to now look for things that are in glass containers. And I've been then washing my glass containers and using like Goo Gone to get off the sticky residue. And then boom, I have like an amazing mason jar to drink out of. And then I'm also trying to use my metal straw more, like if I go out, things like that. So do you have any other like kind of cool, simple kitchen hacks like that we could use to reduce our waste?
So you mentioned the jars. If you reuse salsa jars or pickle jars, the lids smell. And if you put those out in the sun with the smelly side up, that will get rid of the smell. And you don't have to, when you run out of your Goo Gone to remove the labels, just put oil on the jar, on the label.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, any type of oil that you have, put it on. If it's a peanut butter jar and you have a little tiny smidgen of peanut butter left, just smear that on the label. Yeah, and the oil will break down the glue and it will come off.
Perfect. So then I don't have to use a chemical.
Yeah, works really well. Bread, if you have stale bread, you can put it underwater. It sounds like the first time I did it, I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? This is horrifying, putting a loaf of bread under running tap water. But you wet it. Try not to wet the cut side. So I haven't done it with sliced bread. Say I have a partial loaf of sourdough bread. So I wet the outside and then put it in the oven at a low temperature, I think around 300, 325. It's on my Instagram. Put it in there for maybe 6 minutes and the water turns to steam and it will turn your hard bread into fresh bread.
Wow. So you could save a stale loaf of bread that way.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Stale bread's actually great though for, can make breadcrumbs and croutons and all kinds of things. But yeah, if you have a part of a loaf, yeah, you can do, or if you have a whole loaf, yeah, you can do that. So that's a great tip. A lot of bread goes to waste. I forget the actual numbers, the amount of bread that goes to waste in the US. I mean, it's astonishing. Hundreds of thousands of loaves a day or something crazy like that.
Wow. One thing I've been enjoying using is my air fryer. So like even making my own French fries, I can just buy loose potatoes and then cut them into little French fries, put some oil on there. And then, I don't even have to dirty a pan with foil or anything like that. I can just throw them straight in the base of the air fryer and, save the bag of, oven.
Oh yeah. I haven't used one of those. That sounds great. I love my pressure cooker. I bought it. It was secondhand at the thrift store. I think it was $15. And actually the new version of the one I have, because it's not a fancy one, is not expensive. But I use that to cook beans instead of canned beans. I buy dried beans at the bulk bins and they're delicious. The beans you cook from dry. Yeah. And that cuts a lot of waste. It cuts all of those cans. The cans are also super heavy. So when you buy dried beans, they don't weigh as much. There's no water. So that reduces energy to transport the beans to the store, and they're inexpensive. But like everything with this lifestyle, you have to do a little bit of planning. So if I want chickpeas, well, I have to plan ahead. So if I'm craving chickpeas right in this moment, unless I have some in the freezer, which I do right now, I made a bunch in my pressure cooker. I try to make a lot, so I have extra, but it does take a little bit of planning.
Yeah, it's like anything in life. I think so much of like food packaging comes from our convenience lifestyle, right? Just like it's all convenience based. And I tell my clients this too, like if you want to be more successful at eating healthier, you need to do some planning and preparation. And you can meld that with also trying to reduce your waste by simply being in the kitchen a little bit more and cooking. What's one of your current favorite, like easy recipes that we could all make at home? The galettes sound amazing, so I want to try that. And then I also want another idea to try.
Well, my go-to recipe is potato cauliflower dal, because you can't go wrong with potatoes, cauliflower, and Indian spice. I think it's like impossible.
Sounds so good. So do you just kind of cook up the potatoes and cauliflower and then just add spices?
Yes, I cook the lentils first, and then while those are cooking, I'll chop up I put onions and serrano peppers, bunch of spices, potatoes, cauliflower. So prep all the vegetables, saute the onion and the serranos. Oh, actually, first I do the cumin seed, right, in the oil. Then add the onion and the serranos, and then add the cauliflower and the potatoes. Then add the cooked lentils with their water. And it must have tomatoes in it too. Yeah. Anyway, and then cook that. It's delicious. I eat it with my preserved lemons on the side. But a super quick recipe in the book that I really like to make are eat all your vegetables pancakes. They're really good with potatoes though. I always make them with potatoes. But if I have half a zucchini in the refrigerator or a couple of carrots and potatoes, I'll shred that up. So just shred up whatever you have, as long as you have potatoes. I mean, you can do it without potatoes too, but I love potatoes. I ate so many potatoes during COVID. They're like my comfort food. So I shred that all up and then mix it with eggs and breadcrumbs and salt, and then put a quarter of a cup into a hot oiled pan and flatten it, and then cook it for a couple of minutes, flip it over, cook the other side. They're really good. I love them. They're filling and delicious and quick, and they use up whatever.
That sounds so good. I love potato pancakes, but I never thought to add in like extra veggies. I bet I could even make those in my air fryer.
I don't know. I haven't used one, but I'm going to look into this air fryer.
It's amazing. Yes. No, it's like one of my favorite kitchen tools because it also, you don't have to turn your oven on. So in a place like Austin, Texas, where it's so hot, like instead of turning on my oven and preheating it and then like baking salmon for 20 minutes, I literally put in my salmon in the air fryer and turn it on in 8 minutes. It's done.
Wow.
So it really reduces.
That's great.
I think it helps the environment too, because then I'm not heating my house, which then the air conditioning has to cool.
Yeah.
So it's great for hot weather stuff. So cool. Well, we could just talk all day about food and yummy recipes. So where can people actually get your book, get their hands on all of these yummy recipes from you?
Well, the book, it's called The Zero Waste Chef, Plant-Forward Recipes and Tips for a Sustainable Kitchen Planet. Anywhere you buy books. So your local bookstore, hopefully they have it, and Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Bookshop.org. Bookshop.org is like the indie competitor to Amazon. So if you shop at bookshop.org, you help support the independents.
I'll share those links down below too for the bookshop.org. That sounds really cool. I'd never even heard of that. So I'm glad to hear that tip. And then you're on Instagram and you have amazing tips and content there. So what is your Instagram handle so people can follow you there?
It's at Zero Waste Chef. Facebook too, at Zero Waste Chef. Twitter, I'm also on Twitter. But yeah, I'm most active on Instagram.
Perfect. And I'll put the link down below too in the show notes so y'all can find Anne-Marie there. Anne-Marie, thank you so much for being on the show today. I know I've learned a lot in just a short time of looking at your Instagram, hearing your recipes. I'm definitely going to try making vinegar. So appreciate your time and just you really taking a stand for improving the environment and sharing your knowledge with everybody.
Well, thanks very much, Heather. Thanks for having me on. This was fun.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to connect with you more, so follow me on Instagram at Heather McConaughey and send me a message saying hello. If you loved today's episode, please rate and review the podcast so I can reach and help more women. Remember, when you prioritize self-care, everyone wins.